before the temple steps carried her tears, before her voice fell silent under the weight of sorrow, before her destiny collided with God's timing, Hannah was a woman living inside a storm that had no visible end. In the quiet corners of her home, she held a longing that stretched far beyond her body. Her prayer was not simply, "Lord, give me a child." It was, "Lord, remember me." And that is the cry buried inside many hearts today. Unanswered prayer is not merely a delay. It is a classroom where faith is stretched, motives are refined, and identity is rebuilt. Hannah's story is not about barrenness. It is about what God births inside us when our prayers seem suspended in the heavens. Her journey whispers to the weary soul, just because you cannot see the movement does not mean God is not working. This teaching is a long walk with Hannah. Every scene, every sigh, every moment she felt forgotten becomes a lantern for those waiting for an answer, a breakthrough, a healing, a miracle that seems too late. This is not just Hannah's story. It is every believer's story. It is your story. It is the story of those who have prayed until their tears dried and heaven still seemed quiet. Let us begin. When your prayer becomes a battlefield, the morning sunlight slipped into the house of Elkanah, tracing soft lines on its walls. Peninnah's children were already awake, their laughter echoing through the corridors. It was the kind of sound that warms the heart. Unless the heart carries a wound that laughter only sharpens. Hannah heard them. She always heard them. Every giggle, every tiny footstep running across the floor, every innocent question asking for their mother sliced through her, because those footsteps were the sound of what she did not have. The pain of unanswered prayer tends to sit in the places where joy belongs. Hannah rose from her bed slowly, her body heavy not only with sorrow but with the weight of what seemed like divine silence. She had prayed for years, not weeks, not months, but years, and nothing had changed. And that is the first lesson Hannah teaches us. Lesson 1, unanswered prayer is not proof of God's absence. Sometimes unanswered prayer is simply a season where God is rearranging things behind the curtain of time. Hannah wanted a child, but God wanted a prophet, a voice, a future judge, a man who would anoint kings, a child who would shift a nation. And sometimes what we ask for is smaller than what God intends to give. But Hannah did not know this yet. All she knew was that she was barren, and Peninnah was not. Peninnah moved through the house with the effortless grace of a woman who possessed what another woman lacked. She did not have to strive for attention. Her children did the work for her. And though Elkanah loved Hannah more, the culture, the environment, the expectations, all pointed to Peninnah as the blessed one. And this is where the emotional warfare began. Peninnah's words became arrows dipped in bitterness. "Ah, Hannah, your husband loves you so much. It's a shame you cannot give him anything. Look at my children. God has been so good to me." The words were subtle enough to pretend innocence, but sharp enough to draw blood. Every season of waiting has a Peninnah, someone who unintentionally or intentionally reminds you of what you still do not have. A friend who got the job you prayed for, a sister who got pregnant while you remained barren, a classmate who got married while your relationship fell apart, a coworker who bought the house you fasted for, a stranger whose testimony sounds like the answer you've been begging heaven for. Hannah's pain grew not because she lacked faith, but because the environment kept poking the wound. And here lies the second truth Hannah teaches. Lesson 2, delay reveals what your environment is made of. Delay exposes Peninnah. Delay exposes insecurity. Delay exposes jealousy. Delay exposes the real voice of people around you. Delay exposes your triggers, your weaknesses, your fears, and delay exposes your heart. Hannah began to avoid people, not because she lost faith, but because pain makes you quiet. Pain strips words from your mouth, leaving only silence where laughter used to be. Whenever the family traveled to Shiloh for worship, her stomach tightened. Everyone else brought Thanksgiving offerings. She brought tears. Everyone else came to celebrate the blessings God had given them. She came to beg for one. And that leads to the third truth Hannah shows us. Lesson 3, unanswered prayer is often the heaviest burden carried in the most public places. People saw Hannah walking to the temple. They saw her dressed like a beloved wife. They saw her carrying the privileges of a favored woman. But no one saw the battle in her soul. No one saw the nights she cried herself to sleep. No one saw the jealousy she fought but never wanted to admit. No one saw the way Peninnah's voice echoed in her mind. No one saw how it felt to be loved by her husband, yet feel forgotten by God. And that is the wound of every believer who has prayed for something for years. You can be deeply loved and still deeply hurting. You can be grateful for God in one hand and desperate for Him with the other. Hannah teaches us that unanswered prayer is not a sign of spiritual weakness. It is a sign of spiritual warfare. And she teaches this quietly, without a sermon, without a verse, simply by living through the ache of waiting while others were celebrating. The year God didn't answer her. There is a line in Scripture that seems quiet, but it carries the weight of many years, and year after year she went up to the house of the Lord. Year after year, not once, not twice, not for a season, not during a fast, not during a special revival meeting, but year after year. This is the part of Hannah's story that most people skip over because it feels uncomfortable. We love quick miracles and sudden breakthroughs, but the Bible is full of long waits wrapped in short verses. Hannah prayed this prayer for years. Some years she prayed with hope. Some years she prayed with anger. Some years she prayed with numbness. Some years she prayed with a fragile smile. Some years she prayed with tears. Some years she almost gave up. And still, nothing changed. Have you ever reached a point where you no longer knew what emotion to bring to God? Where your prayer feels like a repetition instead of a request? Where you ask yourself if maybe, just maybe, your life will never shift? Hannah lived in that space. Every year they traveled to Shiloh, and every year Peninnah provoked her. The story doesn't say Peninnah mocked her once. It says she provoked her severely to make her fret, not to correct, not to discipline, not to advise, to make her fret. Meaning, her intention was to stir Hannah's anxiety, to upset her spirit, to create internal chaos. Every year, Elkanah tried to comfort Hannah. "Am I not better to you than 10 sons?" A loving sentence, but one she didn't need to hear, because sometimes when your heart is breaking, comfort feels like noise. Elkanah's words were sweet, but they didn't heal what was happening in the hidden room of her soul. This is the next reality Hannah teaches. Lesson 4, there are wounds only God can heal. No husband's love could fix her. No family's affection could erase her pain. No encouragement could silence the voice of barrenness. No positive talk could rebuild her faith. There are some prayers only heaven can touch. So year after year, Hannah kept showing up, quietly, faithfully, painfully. But here is the mystery. Even though God did not answer her immediately, He still drew her into His temple year after year. Unanswered prayer can feel like rejection, but sometimes it is an invitation, a pull, a call, a slow walk into deeper surrender, because it is often in the waiting that we learn who God really is. And here is something subtle but profound. Lesson 5, when God delays, He is not punishing, He is preparing. Hannah thought she was waiting for a child. God was waiting for a generation, for a prophetic voice that would shape Israel's destiny. For Samuel, one of the greatest prophets to ever walk the earth. But preparation requires silence, so God withheld not because He was unkind, but because the timing was too powerful to rush. Sometimes delay is divine protection. Sometimes delay is divine alignment. Sometimes delay is divine preparation, the breaking point. This is the year everything changed. Not because circumstances shifted, not because Peninnah stopped mocking her, not because Elkanah understood her pain better, but because Hannah reached the end of herself. She had no more pride to protect, no more polite prayers to offer, no more strength to pretend she was okay, no more mask of being the favored wife. She reached the temple with tears instead of dignity. And that is where answers begin. The year God answers is not when conditions improve. The year God answers is when you stop praying from your mouth and start praying from your soul. The Bible says, "She was in bitterness of soul and prayed to the Lord and wept in anguish." 1 Samuel 1:10. She didn't whisper a memorized prayer. She didn't ask for advice. She didn't try to look strong. She didn't try to impress anyone. She prayed in anguish, raw, unfiltered, broken, real. Sometimes the doorway to breakthrough is a prayer you didn't rehearse, a cry instead of a sentence, the vow that unlocked heaven. For the first time, Hannah did what she had never done before. She prayed a vow. She said, If you give me a son, I will give him back to you all the days of his life. This was the shift, not in God, but in her spirit. For years she prayed to receive. Now she prayed to release. For years she prayed for comfort. Now she prayed for purpose. For years she prayed for a baby. Now she prayed for a prophet. Your breakthrough often arrives when the purpose behind your prayer matures. And so the next truth Hannah teaches us is this. Lesson 6. God answers prayers that align with destiny, not just desire. God wasn't waiting for her womb. He was waiting for her vow, her surrender, her willingness to partner with divine purpose. When Hannah shifted from bless me to use me, heaven shifted from silence to movement. When the priest misunderstood her, can you imagine being in the middle of your deepest agony, your most vulnerable moment, your sacred cry to God, and the priest walks up and insults you? Eli said, "Woman, why are you drunk? Put your wine away." She wasn't drunk. She was grieving, but he couldn't tell the difference. This is another thing unanswered prayer does. It makes your pain invisible to those who haven't carried it. You can be bleeding spiritually while others misinterpret your wounds. Here is the next truth. Lesson 7. People often misread you when you are in deep spiritual travail. Eli saw her lips moving but didn't hear her voice, just like many people see your life but don't hear your pain. But Hannah didn't get offended. She didn't storm out. She didn't argue. She didn't let anger derail her moment. She simply said, "I am a woman of sorrowful spirit. I have been pouring out my soul before the Lord." And just like that, Eli's tone changed. He blessed her. He declared peace over her. He spoke the first prophetic word into her destiny. Lesson 8. When you endure misunderstanding with humility, you step into favor. God sees humility. He sees restraint. He sees the pain you hide to protect your heart, and he rewards it. Hannah walked away from the temple that day, and something subtle yet powerful changed. Her face was no longer sad, not because she was pregnant, but because peace entered before the miracle did. The presence of God touched her before the answer came. That is how you know breakthrough is near, when peace arrives before proof, when God remembers you. There is a verse in Hannah's story that glows like a candle placed in a dark room. And the Lord remembered her. 1 Samuel 1:19. It is not that God forgot. God does not misplace names. He does not overlook tears. He does not lose track of prayers the way humans lose track of conversations. When Scripture says, God remembered, it means he decided it was time. Time for the womb to open. Time for the story to shift. Time for the cycle to break. Time for the promise to breathe. Heaven has calendars for everything, including your breakthrough. You may feel forgotten, but heaven has not missed your request. God remembered Noah. God remembered Rachel. God remembered Abraham. God remembered his covenant. God remembered Hannah. And one day, God will remember you. There is always a divine turning point that arrives quietly but changes everything. Hannah didn't know when it would come. She didn't know if it would come, but she prayed anyway. When God remembers, it is not because your prayer gets louder. It is because his timing draws nearer, the invisible shift. After Hannah prayed that day in the temple, her womb did not open immediately. She went home. She slept. She woke. She cooked meals. She washed her clothes. She listened to Peninnah's voice again. She carried the same body with the same emptiness. She moved through the same rooms that held the same silence. But something had shifted. Her face was no longer sad. God had not answered her yet, but God had touched her spirit. Sometimes the first miracle is not the answer. It is the peace that comes before the answer. Peace is heaven's whisper that you are closer than you think. When peace enters before proof, it is a sign that the story is no longer in your hands. It is in God's. This is the next truth Hannah teaches us. Lesson 9. God brings inner peace before outer manifestation. You feel lighter before anything around you changes. You feel hope returning before the situation shifts. You feel rest in a place that used to ache. You feel clarity in a place that used to confuse you. You feel a quiet confidence rising out of nowhere. And that is God saying, I have begun worship before the womb opens, before the miracle touched her body. Hannah went back to the temple with her family to worship. She worshiped in the waiting. She worshiped with an unfulfilled desire. She worshiped before she held anything. She worshiped when she had no visible testimony. Many people worship after they receive. Hannah worshiped before, and that is what faithful waiting looks like. Worship when the bills aren't paid. Worship when the door hasn't opened. Worship when the healing hasn't come. Worship when the promise is still invisible. Worship when the womb is still closed. Worship when the prayer still feels unanswered. This is not pretending, it is surrender. Hannah teaches us. Lesson 10. Worship is the bridge between expectation and manifestation. Worship turns waiting from torture into transformation. Worship prepares the heart for what God is shaping behind the scenes. Worship breaks pride. Worship creates alignment. Worship opens spiritual atmospheres around you. Hannah's womb opened in an atmosphere of worship. There is power in praising while empty. It stirs God to fill what is lacking. The subtle miracle. The scripture then says simply, Elkanah knew Hannah his wife, and the Lord remembered her. No thunder, no angel, no lightning, no heavenly announcement, no dramatic visitation. The miracle came quietly, softly, gently, like sunlight touching a room without a sound. This is how most breakthroughs come, not in fireworks, but in stillness. You will look back one day and say, that was the moment something changed, but I didn't realize it then. This is the next truth Hannah reveals. Lesson 11. Miracles often begin quietly before they become obvious. You don't always know when God has started working. You don't always feel it. You don't always sense it. But something shifts in the spiritual realm long before it shows up in the physical. A tiny seed began to form in Hannah's womb. Life was whispering where death once ruled. A future was being designed inside her body. Samuel did not begin with a pregnancy. He began with a prayer. Your miracle always begins in a hidden place. Long before people can see it, the fulfillment of the vow. When Hannah became pregnant, her spirit carried more than a child. She carried purpose. She carried surrender. She carried the weight of a vow. She named him Samuel, meaning, because I asked the Lord for him. Names in ancient Israel were not decorations, they were declarations. Samuel's name was a permanent reminder that nothing is too difficult for God. Hannah carried him with joy. She nurtured him with hope. She fed him with purpose. She raised him knowing he did not belong to her. He belonged to the one who opened the womb the world had closed. And this leads to one of the hardest but most profound lessons. Lesson 12. What God gives must be held loosely enough to give back. Some blessings become idols when we cling to them too tightly. Some answers break us because we refuse to release them. Some gifts lose their power when we try to own them instead of steward them. But Hannah already decided, Lord, if you give me a son, I will give him back to you. Her vow was the doorway to a prophetic destiny, and your breakthrough will have a purpose bigger than your comfort. Weaning the promise. The Bible says Hannah stayed home until the boy was weaned. Back then, this could take 2 to 3 years or more. 3 years of bonding, 3 years of loving, 3 years of singing to him, 3 years of watching him breathe, 3 years of feeling the warmth of the miracle she carried, 3 years of remembering the tears she once poured out in the temple, 3 years of joy in a home once filled with sorrow. And yet, she did not forget her vow. When Samuel was weaned, she wrapped him in tiny clothes, took him in her arms, and walked him back to Shiloh, back to the temple, back to God. What a walk that must have been, every step holding a mixture of pride and pain, every breath reminding her that obedience sometimes feels like tearing your heart open. But she went, because Hannah was no longer the broken woman who cried in the temple. She had become a vessel of destiny, the prayer that changes everything. When Hannah walked back into the temple with little Samuel's hand folded in hers, she wasn't the same woman who once trembled in its shadows. Then, she was broken. Now, she was whole. Then, she whispered prayers soaked with tears. Now, she carried the result of what tears can birth. The temple that once witnessed her anguish now witnessed her victory. And so she presented Samuel before Eli and said with a steady, quiet strength, For this child I prayed, and the Lord has given me my petition which I asked of him. Therefore I also have lent him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he shall be lent to the Lord. This was not loss. This was fulfillment. This was worship. This was surrender made visible. Then Hannah did something remarkable, something that echoes across ages and still heals hearts today. She prayed again. But this time, the prayer was not a cry. It was a declaration. It wasn't broken. It was powerful. It wasn't a request. It was a testimony. It wasn't a whisper. It was a proclamation. Hannah's second prayer, often called Hannah's song, is one of the deepest theological treasures in Scripture. It rivals the Psalms. It mirrors Mary's Magnificat. It reveals that sorrow, when transformed, becomes wisdom. Here's what Hannah teaches us through her song. Lesson 13. When God finally answers, your voice changes. Your voice carries weight. Your worship carries authority. Your words carry revelation. Your story carries spiritual fire. Pain refines the voice in ways comfort never can. And Hannah's transformed voice begins with these words, "My heart rejoices in the Lord," not in Samuel, not in motherhood, not in vindication, not in proving Peninnah wrong, but in the Lord. This is maturity. This is depth. This is a soul that has finally learned to anchor itself in God, not in outcomes. Lesson 14. The real breakthrough is internal before it is external. Hannah had Samuel, yes, but deeper than that, she had peace. She had identity. She had spiritual understanding. She had a relationship with God that was not built on answers, but on intimacy. Many people receive miracles but do not grow. Hannah grew before she received. Some people receive blessings but stay spiritually shallow. Hannah became spiritually deep long before the blessing arrived into her hands. That's why her song wasn't about Samuel. It was about God, a song born from tears. Hannah declared, "The bows of the mighty are broken, but those who stumbled are armed with strength." This wasn't poetry. This was revelation shaped by years of waiting. She had learned that God overturns situations in His timing. God lifts the humble when the proud least expect it. God sees every tear. God hears every cry. God steps into the story at the perfect moment. Hannah understood something deep. Unanswered prayer is not denial. It is divine rearrangement. This is why her song carries this next truth. Lesson 15. In God's hands, delay becomes a doorway to transformation. If Hannah had received Samuel quickly, her song would have been shallow. Her understanding would have been small. Her worship would have lacked weight. But pain carved wisdom into her. Waiting carved endurance. Silence carved surrender. Longing carved intimacy. Tears carved spiritual depth. This is why her song can confidently declare, "The Lord brings death and makes alive. He brings down to the grave and raises up." These are not lines from a woman who simply got lucky. These are the words of a woman who saw God's character revealed in the furnace of long unanswered prayer. Her voice became prophetic. Her words became timeless. Her testimony became a guiding light for anyone who has ever felt forgotten by heaven, the reversal principle. Hannah's song is filled with divine reversals. The full become hungry. The hungry become filled. The barren bear children. The proud are humbled. The lowly are lifted. The weak are strengthened. Why? Because she experienced the greatest reversal of all, barrenness turning into promise. This becomes the next revelation. Lesson 16. God often waits until you come to the end of your strength so He can reveal His. As long as Hannah could still pretend she was fine, the breakthrough waited. As long as she still tried to act strong, the miracle remained silent. As long as she still tried to hide her pain, heaven held back. Your breaking point is often your birthing point. God doesn't respond to your perfection. He responds to your surrender, the identity shift. Hannah's song continues. He raises the poor from the dust and lifts the needy from the ash heap. An ash heap is not a pretty place. It's the place of burning, the place of what is thrown away, the place of what looks useless, the place society despises. And yet, that is where God works. He lifts people from dust long before He lifts them to destiny. Hannah had lived in the dust. Dust of tears, dust of mockery, dust of delay, dust of shame, dust of unanswered prayer, dust of questions she couldn't voice. But God raised her from the dust so completely that her testimony turned into a national prophecy. There is no depth of sorrow God cannot transform into song, a legacy birthed from pain. Hannah's story does not end with Samuel. Her womb opened again. She had more children. Her life overflowed in ways she never imagined. But her greatest legacy was not the number of children. It was the quality of one. Samuel became the voice of God to Israel. He anointed King Saul. He anointed King David. He shaped kings. He shaped history. He shaped destiny. And all of that came from a woman who once wept silently in the corner of a temple. Her pain birthed a prophet. Her tears birthed a nation's transformation. Her vow birthed a spiritual giant. This leads us to the next truth. Lesson 17. What God births through your waiting will carry more impact than anything birthed through your strength. Quick answers create shallow testimonies. Deep waiting creates deep vessels. Some prayers don't get answered quickly because the answer is too great to arrive cheaply. Samuel could not be rushed. Destiny cannot be microwaved. Prophetic impact cannot be delivered in days. God took his time because what Hannah carried was bigger than she knew. And what you are praying for may be bigger than you know. Why God allows delay. Many believers read Hannah's story and only see the ending, the child, the miracle, the joy. But heaven sees the part we overlook, the years that shaped her into the woman whose prayer could birth a prophet. God did not delay because he was indifferent. He delayed because he was intentional. Every delay in Hannah's life had purpose. Every silence carried strategy. Every unanswered prayer shaped something eternal. And now we explore why God delays through the lens of her life. Lesson 18. Delay exposes idols you didn't know you had. Hannah didn't begin with a vow. She began with a desire. A pure desire, yes, but a desire tied to identity. If I have a child, I will feel complete. If I have a child, I will feel respected. If I have a child, I will silence Peninnah's mockery. If I have a child, I will belong. If I have a child, I will be seen as blessed. God does not punish desire, but God will not allow desire to become a substitute for him. Before Samuel was born, Hannah's identity was entangled with motherhood. After Samuel was born, her identity was entangled with God. God didn't remove her desire, he purified it. He turned desire into destiny, longing into calling, pain into purpose. This is why God sometimes withholds what you're asking for, not to hurt you, but to free you. Lesson 19. Delay reveals your motives. Before her vow, Hannah wanted a child. After her vow, she wanted a prophet. One desire served her life. The other served God's kingdom. One desire was personal. The other was heavenly. One desire ended with Hannah. The other extended into generations. Many prayers go unanswered not because God is rejecting us, but because he is refining. God needed Hannah to pray a prayer that aligned with heaven, not with insecurity. Delay is the fire that reveals what is pure. Lesson 20. Delay matures your faith. Faith that has never been tested remains fragile. Faith that has walked through silence becomes unshakable. Hannah did not lose faith during her waiting. Even in her pain, she went to the temple. Even in tears, she prayed. Even in mockery, she held on to God. The faith she had after the delay was stronger than anything she had before it. Unanswered prayer does not weaken real faith. It strengthens it. It stretches the spiritual muscles that comfort never touches. When you wait, you learn to trust God's character more than his calendar. Lesson 21. Delay teaches you endurance. Endurance is the ability to keep showing up, to keep praying, to keep believing, to keep hoping, to keep worshiping, to keep loving God even when he feels quiet. This endurance becomes the backbone of your spiritual life. Hannah kept coming back to the same temple with the same request, knowing she might walk home with the same empty womb. This is endurance. This is spiritual maturity. This is the path of those whom God will later use greatly. Everything God does with significance comes after endurance. Even Jesus learned obedience through suffering. Hebrews 5:8. Lesson 22. Delay humbles you. Hannah lived with the shame of childlessness, the mockery of Peninnah, the misunderstanding of Eli, the confusion of unanswered prayer, the ache of a silent womb. This humility prepared her heart to steward the blessing of Samuel without pride. God often delays because the miracle he is preparing is too heavy for pride to carry. Humility builds the capacity to handle what destiny requires. Hannah's humility allowed her to give Samuel away, something prideful people cannot do. Humility is not weakness, it is readiness. Lesson 23. Delay creates intimacy with God. Before Samuel came, Hannah learned how to pour out her soul before God. Before the miracle appeared, Hannah learned to sit in God's presence when he felt distant. Before her womb opened, her spirit opened. This intimacy mattered more than the answer. Why? Because intimacy outlasts miracles. A miracle satisfies the moment. Intimacy sustains a lifetime. The Hannah who began her journey could not have written Hannah's song. Pain taught her to pray from a deeper well. Unanswered prayer sometimes becomes the doorway to the strongest relationship you will ever have with God. Lesson 24. Delay aligns your story with God's timing. If Samuel had been born earlier, he would not have arrived during a time when Israel needed him most. He would have come too early for his assignment, too early for his role, too early for his prophetic impact. God was waiting not just for Hannah's womb, but for Israel's need. Your dream might not be late, it might be early. God delays not to frustrate you, but to synchronize your breakthrough with divine purpose. You're not waiting just for the blessing is waiting for the right season. Lesson 25. Delay builds spiritual authority. People who have suffered long pray differently, worship differently, teach differently, lead differently, love differently. There is a compassion and wisdom that comes only from surviving seasons where nothing made sense. But God still sustained you. Hannah's authority came not from her motherhood, but from her tears. She became a woman of spiritual depth, a woman heaven trusted with a prophet, because she had been shaped in the furnace of waiting. Your authority grows in the years when heaven seems silent. The years that feel wasted become the years that shape you the most. Lesson 26. Delay positions you for something greater than what you asked for. Hannah asked for a son. God gave her a prophet. She asked for a child. God gave her a legacy. She asked for a womb to open. God opened a destiny. She asked for one miracle. God gave a lifetime of divine impact. This is the secret buried inside every long wait. When the answer finally comes, it will be bigger than you imagined and more powerful than you prayed. How to pray like Hannah. Hannah's prayer was not long. It was not poetic. It was not rehearsed. It was not the kind of prayer people clap for in church. It was raw. It was unfiltered. It was heart deep. And yet, it moved heaven. People think God responds to eloquence, but what moves God is honesty, humility, and surrender. Hannah's prayer teaches us how to pray when life feels stuck, silent, and unfair. Here is the blueprint. Lesson 27. Pray from the depth of your soul, not the surface of your emotions. The Bible says, she was in bitterness of soul and prayed to the Lord and wept in anguish. Hannah didn't bring polite sadness. She brought the full weight of her pain. Surface prayers are, Lord, bless me. Soul prayers are, Lord, I am drowning. I need you. Surface prayers are routine. Soul prayers are transformative. Surface prayers impress people. Soul prayers move heaven. A soul prayer is when the burden becomes too heavy to pretend, when the words melt into tears, when your prayer slips into silence because your spirit is speaking louder than your lips. This is the kind of prayer that births miracles. Lesson 28. Pray without fear of looking weak. Hannah prayed so intensely that Eli thought she was drunk, meaning her prayer didn't look pretty. It didn't follow temple etiquette. It didn't fit religious expectations, but she didn't care. Pain will push you past the need to appear composed. Real breakthrough begins when you stop performing and start pouring. Some people never pray deeply because they are afraid of crying, looking defeated, losing control, being misunderstood, being judged, exposing their real wounds. But Hannah shows us, you will never receive from God what you are too proud to reveal. God heals what you uncover. God touches what you expose. God restores what you surrender. God lifts what you lay down. Lesson 29. Pray persistently, even when nothing changes. Before her breakthrough, Hannah had prayed this prayer for years. She prayed when she felt hopeful. She prayed when she felt broken. She prayed when she couldn't see progress. She prayed when her heart was numb. She prayed when she didn't know what else to do. Persistence is not about repeating the same words. It's about refusing to let go of God even when you want to give up. Faith is not measured in answered prayers. Faith is measured in unanswered ones. Hannah kept showing up. That is spiritual strength. Lesson 30, pray until your prayer transforms you, not just your situation. Hannah walked into the temple broken, but she walked out different. Scripture says, her face was no longer sad, not because she was pregnant, not because Peninnah apologized, not because Elkanah understood her pain, but because prayer reshaped her heart. Many people pray for change, but true prayer first changes you. Prayer rearranges your posture, your emotions, your mindset, your spirit, your expectations, your relationship with God. Hannah was not the same woman when she stood up from the temple floor. You know real prayer has touched you when your heart shifts before your circumstances do. Lesson 31, pray with surrender, not control. Hannah didn't just pray for a child. She prayed for God's will to be done with that child. She said, if you give me a son, I will give him back to you. This is the most dangerous and powerful kind of prayer, a prayer that releases ownership. When you pray with surrender, you stop trying to manipulate outcomes. You stop trying to control timing. You stop trying to orchestrate your breakthrough. You simply say, God, whatever you give me, and whenever you give it, I will honor you with it. This is the prayer heaven trusts. Lesson 32, pray without comparison. Hannah did not mention Peninnah in her prayer, not once. She didn't say, Lord, silence her. Lord, punish her. Lord, take away her blessings. Lord, lift me above her. Why? Because spiritual maturity is realizing your blessing is not tied to someone else's. Comparison blinds. It poisons your spirit. It turns your prayer into competition. Hannah learned that her story was her own. Peninnah had her portion, but Hannah's miracle required a unique timing, a unique vow, and a unique process. Stop comparing your journey to people who don't share your destiny. Lesson 33, pray until you hear God's peace. The moment Eli said, go in peace, something shifted in Hannah's heart. She didn't hear a promise of pregnancy. She didn't receive a prophetic vision. She didn't get a sign. She simply received peace, and it was enough. Peace is proof that heaven has heard you. Peace is the first stage of answered prayer. Peace is God saying, the rest is my job now. When peace settles over your heart, you no longer pray with desperation. You pray with trust, and trust is the soil where miracles grow. Lesson 34, pray with expectation, but not entitlement. After she prayed, Hannah went home. She ate, she slept, she lived, she worshiped. She didn't despair. She didn't force anything. She didn't demand instant results. She simply expected God to do what was best in His timing. Expectation opens you to receive. Entitlement blocks your spirit. Hannah prayed with open hands, not clenched fists, and heaven answered open hands. Lesson 35, pray until your prayer becomes seed for the future. Hannah didn't pray for herself alone. She prayed for a child who would serve God. Her prayer became a seed that grew into Samuel's ministry. Her prayer shaped kings. Her prayer shaped Israel. Her prayer shaped biblical history. This is the secret of deep prayer. Your prayer outlives you. Some prayers build your life. Some prayers build generations. Hannah prayed a generational prayer, and God honored it. Signs God assess about to answer your unanswered prayer. Before Hannah conceived, something shifted. The womb did not open immediately, but the spiritual atmosphere around her changed first. This is how God often works. Answers begin quietly, long before they become visible. Hannah's story reveals several signs that breakthrough is approaching. Signs most people miss because they expect fireworks instead of whispers. Here are the signs hidden inside her journey. 1. Your sadness lifts before your situation changes. The Bible notes something extraordinary. Her face was no longer sad. 1 Samuel 1:18. This happened before the pregnancy, before the miracle, before anything changed physically. She walked into prayer with heaviness and walked out with peace. This is a powerful clue. When the burden lifts before the breakthrough appears, God is already working. It means your spirit has received what your hands have not yet touched. Heaven has moved your request from delay to delivery. The weight of waiting has been replaced with the weight of peace. Peace is a spiritual signal that heaven has responded. 2. You worship differently. After receiving peace, Hannah worshiped, not forced worship, not desperate worship, not heavy worship, peaceful worship. Worship that springs from trust instead of anguish. Worship that rises from surrender instead of striving. Worship that carries rest instead of panic. When God is close to answering, your worship stops sounding like begging and starts sounding like believing. You are no longer pleading, you are standing. This shift is supernatural. 3. Your appetite for life returns. Before her prayer, Hannah could not eat. Pain had shut down her appetite, but after pouring her soul out, she sat down and ate, not because her situation changed, but because her heart changed. When God is preparing to answer your prayer, the numbness lifts. Joy starts returning in small droplets. Your emotions settle. Your mind stops racing. You start breathing easier. Life no longer tastes bitter. This is one of the surest signs. Hope rises without logical reason. 4. Your perspective shifts. Before breakthrough, something happens inside your mind. You interpret delays differently. You no longer feel forgotten. You stop thinking God is punishing you. You see purpose where you once saw pain. You feel God near even when silent. Your fear loses its voice. Hannah cried in the temple because she was tired of the pain, but she left the temple with clarity she never had before. Clarity is a sign of answered prayer approaching. You suddenly understand what you didn't understand before. You see meaning in what looked meaningless. This is God aligning your heart with His timing. 5. You experience inner rest even without her uncertainty. After her encounter with God, Hannah stopped wrestling internally. The waiting continued, but the war inside her ended. This is the peace Jesus spoke about. My peace I give you, not as the world gives. When answered prayer draws near, this peace become your anchor. Storms still blow, mockers still mock, Peninnah still speaks, wounds still ache, but your spirit remains calm. That calmness is God whispering, I've taken over. 6. You stop trying to force answers. Before the breakthrough, Hannah tried to fight her sorrow quietly. She tried to endure Peninnah. She tried to survive the waiting. But after her encounter in the temple, she released the battle. She didn't try to manipulate outcomes, rush timing, force solutions, hold on to control, demand answers, fix things herself. She rested. When God is close to answering, you lose interest in fixing things in your own strength. You finally say, Lord, let your will speak louder than mine, and that surrender opens doors you couldn't open. 7. God sends a confirming word. Eli told her, go in peace, and the God of Israel grant your petition. It was not dramatic. It was not emotional. It was not accompanied by lighting or visions, but it was enough. When a breakthrough is near, God sends a whisper of confirmation, a verse that hits differently. A sermon that feels like it was written for you, a dream, a phrase someone casually says, a spiritual stirring in your heart, an unexpected encouragement. These confirmations feel like warm fingerprints of heaven on your spirit. They are not loud, but they are clear. 8. Something invisible shifts inside you. Before conception, Hannah experienced a spiritual shift. Her face was no longer sad. Something moved in the unseen realm. This is one of the greatest signs, a subtle inward transformation. You feel lighter, steadier, clearer, grounded, refreshed, centered, strengthened, hopeful, even before anything happens outwardly. It's almost as if your spirit already knows the answer is coming, because it is. 9. The things that used to break you no longer shake you. Before, Peninnah's mocking crushed Hannah. It made her cry. It pushed her into deep sorrow. But afterward, she no longer reacted the same way. Breakthrough was near, and suddenly the same attacks no longer wounded her. When your miracle is close, criticism loses its power. Mockery rolls off your shoulders. Comparison stops stealing your strength. Pain no longer paralyzes you. You know something is about to shift. 10. You begin to feel gratitude even before the blessing arrives. Hannah worshiped with gratitude before her womb opened. That's what faith looks like in maturity. When heaven is preparing your answer, Your heart begins to thank God for things you haven't seen yet. Gratitude is a prophetic declaration that your story is turning. Gratitude is the sound of faith blooming. Gratitude is the echo of a breakthrough approaching. Gratitude is the scent of miracles in the air. What to do while you wait? Waiting is one of the most difficult spiritual disciplines. The world hates waiting. The flesh hates waiting. The mind hates waiting. The emotions hate waiting. But heaven works in seasons, and seasons require waiting. Hannah shows us exactly how to wait without losing faith, dignity, or purpose. Waiting is not inactivity. Waiting is spiritual work. Hannah teaches us what to do while the prayer remains unanswered. 1. Keep showing up. Hannah did not quit the temple. She kept returning year after year. With disappointment, with tears, with questions, with confusion, with emptiness, with silence, she kept coming back. Most people lose miracles here when the pain becomes too repetitive, when the prayer becomes too familiar, when the delay becomes too embarrassing. But Hannah understood that breakthrough requires consistency. Keep showing up in prayer. Keep showing up in worship. Keep showing up in faith. Keep showing up even when discouraged. God honors the ones who return, even broken. 2. Keep your heart tender. Delay can harden a person. It can turn faith into frustration. It can turn longing into bitterness. It can turn prayer into anger. It can turn waiting into resentment. But Hannah guarded her heart. She did not allow bitterness to grow into rebellion. She did not allow Peninnah's mockery to poison her spirit. She did not allow God's silence to make her cynical. A tender heart attracts God. A hardened heart resists Him. Tenderness is a spiritual posture. It's softness in the soul. It's openness in the spirit. It's humility in the waiting. 3. Stay connected to the right environment. Even though Shiloh held painful memories, Hannah stayed rooted in the place where God was. She didn't isolate. She didn't say, "I'll pray from home instead." She didn't run away from the temple out of shame. She went where God's presence was honored. Waiting makes people withdraw, but breakthrough comes to those who stay connected. Stay connected to the Word. Stay connected to worship. Stay connected to believers. Stay connected to spiritual atmosphere. Stay connected to God's voice. Isolation strengthens pain. Connection strengthens faith. 4. Remember who God is, not what He hasn't done yet. Delay can make you forget God's character. But Hannah did not anchor her faith in what God was doing. She anchored it in who God was. God is still faithful even when the answer is delayed. God is still near even when He feels silent. God is still sovereign even when life looks unfair. God is still good even when the story takes too long. Hannah's theology did not change because her circumstances didn't. This is maturity. 5. Keep your integrity while you wait. Delay can tempt you into shortcuts. Many women in Hannah's time turned to substitute parenting, alternative spiritual practices, adopting idols, desperate measures. Hannah stayed pure. She stayed devoted. She stayed focused on God, not quick fixes. Her character remained intact. Your integrity in waiting becomes your qualification for the blessing. 6. Learn to pour out your soul. Hannah didn't bottle emotions. She didn't deny her pain. She didn't pretend she was okay. She poured it out. Pouring out your soul is not self-pity. It is surrender. It is letting God see the wounds beneath the words. It is giving God the real version of your heart, not the polite one. God can fix what you reveal. God can heal what you open. God can touch what you surrender. Pouring out your soul is a spiritual cleansing, a release, a detox, a reset, a turning point. 7. Keep honoring God even in pain. Hannah honored God when her womb was empty. She honored God when Peninnah mocked her. She honored God when the priests misunderstood her. She honored God when the years stretched long. She did not accuse God. She did not become bitter toward heaven. She did not turn away from worship. Honor is the soil where miracle seeds grow. When you honor God in hardship, you position yourself for divine visitation. 8. Do not let shame silence your prayer. Hannah lived in a culture where barrenness was seen as shameful, but she refused to let shame shut her mouth. She prayed out loud. She cried publicly. She knelt before God without hiding. She refused to let embarrassment stop her from seeking an answer. Shame kills miracles. Shame suffocates prayers. Shame closes mouths that should be opening heaven. Hannah teaches, pray boldly even when the situation feels humiliating. 9. Keep believing in the goodness of God. Even when she didn't see change, Hannah believed God was good. Her faith was not in outcomes, it was in God's character. This is powerful because faith rooted in outcomes collapses. Faith rooted in God survives everything. Hannah did not let pain redefine God. She let God redefine her pain. 10. Let your waiting purify your motives. At first, Hannah wanted a child for relief. Relief from mockery, relief from shame, relief from cultural pressure. But over time, the waiting deepened her intentions. Her prayer matured into a vow. Lord, this child is yours. Your waiting is not punishment. It is purification. God is shaping the version of you that can steward the blessing. 11. Don't worship the miracle, worship the God behind it. Hannah wanted the miracle, but she did not make an idol out of it. Her worship remained centered on God. You know your heart is ready when you want the giver more than the gift. 12. Choose faith over feelings. Daily, feelings fluctuate. Some days you believe, some days you break, some days you're numb, some days you're angry, some days you're strong, some days you're weary. Faith is a choice you return to every day. Hannah chose faith again and again, even when feelings betrayed her. Hannah's waiting was not passive. It was active, intentional, spiritual, and transformative. This is what to do when your prayer is unanswered. Keep showing up. Keep your heart tender. Stay connected. Protect your integrity. Pour out your soul. Honor God. Silence shame. Choose faith daily. This is the blueprint for waiting well. The God who restores. When people talk about Hannah, they focus on Samuel, but there is a hidden treasure many overlook. God did not give Hannah only one child. He gave her 6. 1 son birthed through tears, 5 more birthed through joy. The woman who once carried emptiness eventually carried abundance. The womb that sat in silence eventually overflowed with life. The house that once echoed with Peninnah's children eventually echoed with Hannah's blessings. Hannah's story teaches one of the most comforting truths in Scripture. God does not end stories the way they begin. He lifts what was bowed. He fills what was empty. He restores what was lost. He heals what was broken. He rewrites what was painful. Hannah's beginning was sorrow. Her ending was restoration. This is how God works. When God restores, He goes beyond your request. Hannah asked for 1 child. God gave Samuel 3 sons, 2 daughters. This is the mathematics of heaven. God multiplies what pain subtracts. He does not return blessings in equal measure. He restores in overflowing measure. Hannah did not just receive a child, she received a future. She did not just receive a blessing, she received legacy. She did not just receive comfort, she received influence. This is God's signature. The ending always carries more weight, more joy, more glory than the beginning. When God restores, He silences every mockery. Peninnah mocked her for years. Her laughter was loud. Her insults were sharp. Her presence was a reminder of what Hannah lacked. But when Samuel was born, God Himself responded to Peninnah without Hannah saying a word. God knows how to silence every critic, every taunt, every whisper, every comparison, every voice that wounded you during the wait. Hannah did not need revenge. She didn't argue. She didn't attack. She didn't fight back. Her blessing became her defender. Her miracle became her answer. Her testimony became her shield. God is the only one who can respond to mockery in a way that brings peace instead of bitterness. When God restores, He lifts your honor. Hannah once lived in the shadow of humiliation, but restoration pushed her into the forefront. She became the mother of Israel's greatest prophet. The woman who once cried quietly became a woman whose story is still quoted centuries later. The one who felt overlooked became one of the most honored women in Scripture. God did not just bless her, He honored her. Restoration is not just about receiving something new. It is about recovering your dignity, identity, voice, confidence, and favor. Hannah's shoulders rose again. Her name carried admiration instead of pity. Her face carried light instead of heaviness. This is what God does. When God restores, you no longer feel attached to the pain. Hannah's story ends with victory so bright that the memory of her sorrow no longer defined her. This is the quiet miracle of restoration. Pain loses its grip. Shame loses its voice. The wound loses its power. The past no longer dictates your emotions. When God restores, the narrative shifts. The pain becomes a testimony instead of a prison. Hannah looked back and no longer felt crushed. She felt grateful. She felt wiser. She felt transformed. Her sorrow became her testimony. Her waiting became her wisdom. Her tears became her triumph. When God restores, the blessing carries purpose. Samuel was not just a child. He was a spiritual turning point for Israel. He anointed kings. He corrected nations. He carried God's voice. He brought God's presence into households. He shaped destinies. Hannah birthed a child, but God birthed a prophet. And this is another secret of divine restoration. Blessings that come after long waiting carry greater purpose than blessings that come easily. Hannah's womb was closed for a season, so her child could open destinies for generations. What feels like delay now may be the foundation of something far greater than you imagined. When God restores, He leaves evidence. Hannah did not have one moment of blessing. She had a lifetime of evidence. Every child born after Samuel was proof that God's hand was on her life. Every year she visited the temple to see Samuel growing in the presence of God, reminded her that God had truly rewritten her story. Restoration is not a single moment, it is a journey where joy keeps growing, a journey where faith keeps deepening, a journey where gratitude keeps expanding, a journey where you see God's fingerprints everywhere. Hannah lived the rest of her life surrounded by evidence that God remembers, God restores, and God rewards faithfulness. Hannah's journey is not just a piece of ancient history, it is the quiet blueprint behind every modern believer whose heart aches with prayers that heaven has not yet answered. We study Hannah not because her story is distant, but because it is repeating itself in the lives of millions today. Her tears look like your tears. Her silence feels like your silence. Her longing echoes your longing. Her confusion mirrors your confusion. Her waiting resembles your waiting. But her ending, her testimony, her breakthrough is also a prophecy of what God can still do in your life. Hannah teaches us this entire truth. Unanswered prayer is not God ignoring you. It is God preparing something bigger than you prayed for. Your waiting is not wasted. Your tears are not forgotten. Your prayers are not dismissed. Your desires are not rejected. God hears. God sees. God remembers. God restores. Just like He did for Hannah. If you feel forgotten, remember Hannah. She thought heaven was silent, but heaven was shaping a prophet. She thought God had closed His ears, but God was orchestrating a generational answer. She thought the delay meant denial, but the delay meant destiny. You are not waiting alone. You are waiting under the same God who remembered Hannah. If you feel discouraged, remember Hannah. Her breakthrough did not arrive in a flash. It came through years of tears, years of mockery, years of unanswered questions, years of inner battles, years of confusion, years of endurance. And yet, when God remembered her, everything shifted in a moment. Your moment is not impossible. It is simply not scheduled for yesterday. If you feel exhausted, remember Hannah. She reached the point where she had nothing left to give. And that was when her prayer touched heaven. God does not move when you feel strong. He moves when you cannot carry it anymore. Hannah's story whispers, your breaking point is often God's beginning point. Your tears today may be the seeds of your Samuel tomorrow. If you feel hopeless, remember Hannah. She walked into the temple empty and walked out with peace. Before she ever became pregnant, God touched her soul. Before God fixed her situation, God fixed her spirit. And this is what God is doing in you too, pouring peace into the places that ache, pouring strength into the places that tremble, pouring hope into the places that cracked, pouring purpose into the places that waited. The peace arrives before the miracle does. If you feel like giving up, remember Hannah. She stayed faithful, she stayed tender, she stayed prayerful, she stayed humble, she stayed connected. She stayed believing, and God rewarded her faithfulness. He rewarded her tears. He rewarded her waiting. He rewarded her vow. He rewarded her surrender. The God of Hannah is still your God. He is still the one who opens what has been closed, lifts what has fallen, restores what is broken, answers what has cried, births what has been delayed, fulfills what He promised. This is who He is. And now your story. Somewhere in your life, there is a closed place, a quiet ache, a prayer that feels suspended in the sky, a longing without resolution. Maybe it's marriage, maybe it's purpose, maybe it's healing, maybe it's a child, maybe it's finances, maybe it's direction, maybe it's restoration, maybe it's deliverance, maybe it's the ability to dream again. Whatever it is, God is not finished. Your tears have not disqualified you. Your doubts have not disqualified you. Your exhaustion has not disqualified you. Your questions have not disqualified you. If anything, they have made you more like Hannah, a woman chosen to birth something meaningful. The final truth Hannah leaves with you is this: God may delay, but He never abandons. He may be silent, but He is never absent. He may not answer quickly, but He answers powerfully. He may not respond when you want, but He responds when your heart and destiny are aligned. And when He does, the joy will swallow every year of sorrow. The breakthrough will silence every mockery. The restoration will overshadow every wound. The blessing will rewrite every painful page. The purpose will elevate every tear into testimony. Hannah's story did not end with emptiness, and neither will yours. God is writing, God is weaving, God is preparing, God is remembering, God is moving, and when His timing opens the door, your Samuel will come forth, your proof that God hears, your evidence that God restores, your reminder that God has not forgotten you. Your unanswered prayer is not the end. It is the beginning of a story that will one day testify, "For this I prayed, and the Lord has given me the desire of my heart." Amen.